All right, here we are live. I am Mo Problems, and as promised tonight, we are going to be doing our first episode of Ripped Off. That is right, because I am so uncreative, I had to scour the web for people who are better at motion graphics, and we are going to rip them off. Tonight, I picked the account Zhestkov. This guy, talented guy, Maxim Zhestkov. People have been sending me his work for years. He does a lot of stuff with particles, really long sims. You've probably come across some of his work, maybe some of his films. Really some nice stuff. These simulations look like they take a really long time. When I saw it, I thought to myself, I should steal that. And so tonight, I gave it a shot, and we're going to go through my process on an attempt to steal some of his work. Now, he has a lot of different simulations on his site. Obviously, it's going to take me a long time to steal every single one of them, but I promise you I will. We're just going to go ahead and jump into Cinema 4D here and see if we can figure out his process. I've obviously already done a few of these. I posted one on my Instagram account. You can go check that out at Mo Problem on Instagram. And let's go ahead and undock. You're going to need 3 programs to do this. We do Cinema 4D, Xparticles, and Octane. I have an old version of Cinema 4D R16, and I have an old version of Xparticles. I haven't found a need to upgrade it yet. I don't know what the new system looks like, but I'm sure it's similar. All right, so to start out, we're going to create an object that we're going to build an Xparticles volume emitter out of. So in this case, you need to pull in your super sweet logo. If you don't have one, I can provide that service for you, $50. Just DM me. I'll build you a logo. You get no revisions, and it may or may not involve nudity. All right. There we go. We pulled it in using CV Art Smart. It's a pretty standard plugin for pulling in vector objects. And I'm just going to hit C, turn that into an editable object. And then I get all the paths. We're going to connect objects and delete. I'm going to click here, extrude this path. There we go. Maybe set it to 60, whatever. And we're going to build a box. I'm going to go 1920 by 1920. So I can put it on Instagram, get 1 million followers. What I'm basically going to do is bool this object. I'm going to cut my logo out of this square. So you just want to go to the side and make sure that it's thicker than your square is. And your square is going to determine how many particles we can actually put in there. I'm going to go to bool object, drop in my cube on top. And there we go. This is going to be our volume emitter. And it's also going to be our collider inside of the particle network. I'm going to hit C and just combine all these, connect objects and delete. I'm going to delete the Fong tag so it don't look funky. And then we're going to go ahead and save because this could crash at any minute. All right, now we're going to add an Xparticle system, create an emitter, set the emitter in the object channel to object, and then we're going to drop in fancy creator. There we go. I'm going to turn it off visually so I can't see it. We're going to change our emission to shot. It's going to have one shot of 1,000. Then we're going to go to our cap. Let's call it MMP Wheat logo. I'll right click on this bad boy. I'm going to add a collider tag. And I'm going to hit any. Bounce. I don't know. I really don't know. Set these to whatever you want. Now we got emitter, collider. What happens if we hit play? There we are. Now they're starting with a speed of 150. I take that to 0. I'm going to up the radius to 4. And then we're going to change the display from dots to spheres. Try again. Look at that. Now I can't really tell if it's filling up the spaces that I want, although I know for a fact it is because I'm so good at this. You're starting to see that they're avoiding the MMMP. But we want to keep our shot count low until we're positive that our sim is doing what we want. It's emitting. We forgot to change this. Go to the object, change emit from. We want to go to object volume. That's what we want. Now it's real hard to see. I'm going to up it real quick. Just do a check. 100,000. There we go. I just had to select all and then right click and hit optimize and make sure that it wasn't counting any additional vertices or something that was inside of this logo. Okay, so that's good to go. I'm going to drop it back down to like 10,000. I'm going to hit a modifier. We're going to do a turbulence. Turn this guy back off. The turbulence is basically going to move my particles around. Now what we're going to do is save that guy. Now we're going to leave off particle to particle collisions till the very end. But I can go ahead and start texturing this. I'm going to create shader, a mixed material. We're going to open up that network. Now inside of here, I'm going to add in regular octane material. Second one, we're going to make one glossy black. Go to basic, switch it to glossy, and then the second one, we're going to keep it diffuse. And we're going to use a node on here, instance color. Inside of the instance color node, you can switch it to particle, and then you can select the source, emitter, and we're going to do display color. Now if we go back to our emitter, you can actually have the display, the color mode change. We can use different things, random color, random gradient. We're going to do gradient parameter, and we're going to base that off speed. On one end, I'm going to go black, and on the other end, I'm going to go blue. We can change how this ramps up. I'm going to set the speed to auto. I'm going to plug that into the emission. Just deleted it. I'll plug it into the texture node of the emission. There we go. And this mixed material is going to get dropped. So we need to create on the emitter octane object tag. And we're going to go to particle rendering, geometry. We're going to drop in sphere. And we're going to put our material on that sphere. I'm going to also plug in this instance color to the diffuse. Now let's see what we're working with here. A drop in an HDRI, octane sky, image texture. I'm going to go grab an HDRI from my computer so we can light this real quick. Now as it's playing, you can already see that some of these are blue and some of these are black. And as the turbulence pushes around the particles, the ones that are moving fastest are going to be blue. The ones that are moving slower are going to be black. Let's see if we did this rendering right. So the sphere radius currently is set to 100 centimeters. And we're going to need to reduce that to 1. Then I believe that it's powered by the actual particle size. The one thing we're going to need to change here is the power on the emission. Cranked up real high. Pull it down to 1.1. And we're starting to get there. We'll crank this up to 8, maybe 10. I'm going to go ahead and build a little environment to put this in. I'm going to add a plane, for our back wall. Make that a plaster wall. I'm going to make a floor. And out work. I'm going to make a frame for my piece. We already know that it was like 1920, so we'll make it like 1925, and we're just going to sweep this. Sweep NURB. Drop in another rectangle. Build a basic frame real quick. Talking. Then increase the height. I'm going to go ahead and build out materials. I grabbed floor from the live EP, went to wood. I think it was blackwood. Start there. Then I did something super simple for the top, because a lot of these that he does, he's got this kind of bright light ceiling. I'm gonna just do something simple like that. I go in, I create a new material, and we're just gonna make this another emission material, and we're just gonna put a grid over top of it. Do a texture emission. I actually have my own sets of patterns that I've made. I'm just going to use real simple cross like that. Put it in the diffuse channel as well. Probably need to take this power down. Throw that on the ceiling. Boom. And maybe let's grab another type of wood for our frame. Mahogany. That on. Then I used a custom plaster material that I made for the back. I don't know if there's one inside the live DB. I don't think there is. Off the top. But who cares? Use up there. That'll get us going. Now I'm going to reduce this down to like 30 frames. We'll see what happens when we crank our emitter up to 1,000,000. Now, if you look at some of these that he's doing, I mean, this is a lot of particles. Now, this one looks like it's one layer thick, maybe. maybe a little bit more, 2 or 3 layers thick. That is millions of particles right there. The render times on these, just the computation times, take forever. I guess it depends on how good your computer is. I hit play here. As you can see, we're getting a lot more particles, more than even my viewport can really handle. Takes it a second to even process it. You can see little pockets of blue that are coming up in here. I'm going to unpause this. Let's render that real quick. See, we're already starting to get there. You're seeing that maybe we need to choke that gradient a little bit more. I mean, it all depends on how you want these pockets of blue to come in. Let's work on our light real quick on the ceiling. We're going to switch that to square mapping, cubic. I'm going to turn off my emitter for now. Just make sure that this is right. Go with, I don't know, 400 by 400. And scoot it along to where maybe just edge there. And then it looks like we need to crank the emission up on this. Doesn't look like it's really outputting light. Actually, it might be upside down. I think that's our problem. So it's probably emitting light only from the top. Maybe because I didn't check double-sided. And maybe it's weak. I don't know. There we go. Now we're in business. So there we go. We're like halfway there. We could really tweak how, like, what the mix is between the glossiness and the emitter, and we can really tweak at what speed these become blue. You could also change it to another parameter. You could do, you know, age, distance from an object, all sorts of different things. I think you can even use the instance to put in patterns, maybe Cinema 4D noise generators. There's all kinds of possibilities, and I really haven't tried all of them. I just gave this one a go, and it looked pretty cool. I turned the turbulence way up on mine, and it just shreds right through all the particles, which is not the vibe that he goes for necessarily. If you look at mine, it just really shreds the whole thing to pieces. And it's kind of like not as elegant. A lot of popping in and out. It has its own little charm, I guess. As opposed to coming through on some of these, where it's a real slow, gradual change. It looks like recently, and I don't even know if he uses Cinema 4D. I don't know if he uses X Particles, but I know X Particles now has like a really good cloth sim, and that it's a possibility that he probably uses that. This one looks like he has some sort of displacement map, like a Voronoi displacement map moving through it, and then maybe when they're at a certain height, they change colors. So pretty. So sorry I had to steal all this work. I think I will keep playing around with the particle systems, trying to figure out maybe a little bit more about how to affect the color changing. So when you have something like this set up and ready to go, What I also like to do is go in and add a cache object, because honestly, there's no way you're going to view this in real time. So a cache object is just how you're going to set it up so that you can play it back. If I reduce mine down to 10,000, then you just hit build cache. You got to change where this thing goes. These caches can actually be huge. I've done some simulations in xParticles, one with a whale flapping his tail in the ocean, and that thing, several gigabytes just for that simulation. But then you can play it back in real time. Looks pretty sick. I'm just going to drop it in my cache folder. MMP, make new folder, test. Okie dokie. And I think for my simulation, we're talking, I think 40 minutes. And when you crank this up and you put in particle collisions, it can get out of control, which I guess that was the last thing that I didn't do. Now we can watch this in real time. Maybe not while I'm running Streamlabs. See, this is actually a lot chiller than mine because I didn't crank up the turbulence settings. It's still set strength to 5, frequency to 100, scale to 100. If I up this, things start getting crazy. There you go. And then, of course, if you come in and you change particle to particle collisions, and that's going to keep them from going through each other, which if it's going to look like his, then that's a necessity. And I don't want to get bogged down in doing these simulations. I've got a ton of these already cranking, some of them a little bit slower than the one that I initially started with, but I mean, my viewport cannot even handle this. But you're getting an idea of what it looks like. This one's a lot slower. I was trying to render it before this thing started. Did not get there. Maybe this won't even play back. It still looks a little bit too quick for me. And there's a lot of different settings inside of xParticles that you could use to taper this. You could set a speed limiter. You could do a time remap to slow it down. And that's it. There you have it. That's basically how I created mine. I went in and tweaked the lighting, did a camera with lots of depth of field, really, really low focal range to get the second shot. And I just threw on one of my tracks from one of my previous posts, and that's it. So if you come across this, you like it, you want to build it yourself, go for it. But I don't want you to deviate from my tutorial at all. It needs to look exactly like mine is. If you attempt in any way to be original or creative or take this in a different direction, it would be highly offensive. You need to steal this completely verbatim. So if you like this, head over, like and subscribe on YouTube, follow me on Instagram, head over to Zhestkov, give him a like and a follow. I'm sure he's got lots of other great work coming out. If you do manage to copy this tutorial verbatim, go ahead and tag me. # Mark, you're a hack.